Hello, my name is Dr. Julie Yu, and I teach at Kansas State University. And today I wanted to send you an encouraging message and a message of thanks to all of you who are continuing to make music in this difficult time. I have a 10-year-old son, his name is Noah, and we have a little joke that we say, and that is, I'm bored. My 10-year-old likes to wake up in the morning and I'll go in there and I'll say, good morning, Noah. And he'll say, good morning, I'm bored. And he'll get in the car and he'll put on his seatbelt and he'll say, I'm bored. In the middle of eating breakfast, he'll say, I'm bored. And it's become a joke because now that he doesn't go to school in person right now, and because many of his activities are canceled, there's this state of boredom that he's constantly in, so much so that this has become a joke for us. So I took this idea, and that's what I wanted to discuss with you today, is the concept that right now is a strange time. I don't know about you, but some days days go flying by, and some days the days seem to last for an eternity. Every week I take out the trash and I think, is it already trash day again this week? And then there's some days when it feels like the week will never end. My son and I are living in a state of boredom in some ways because I can't be with my choirs, he can't be with his friends, and we're relegated to our home, which often looks exactly the same, and we maybe will venture out with masks on to go to the grocery store or such, but often it's this sense of kind of being in a Groundhog Day, where the days just seem to pass without any kind of excitement sometimes, or they become very predictable. And as artists, I think we live in a world that we don't want predictability. We like the excitement and the changes that come with being busy and being active, and especially with making music and art with other people. So I thought about when I was a child, which wasn't that long ago, but when I was a little girl, my mother used to take me to her Bible studies and church meetings that happened very early in the morning. It was at a Korean church, and we would go sometimes at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and all the little church people would get together and they would say their prayers and we would sing hymns and all these kinds of things. But as a child, this was when I was like in 5th grade, 4th grade, I would have to, in the freezing cold of German winter, we were stationed in Germany, we would bundle up and go to this church, be 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would just have to sit in the pews and just wait for the hour or two that they would do these church services. And so I got bored, and it only took about 1 or 2 times that I would say to my mom, I'm bored, before I got the look and I got the, oh, you want to know what bored is. Just you're going to be grounded at home. I'll show you what bored is. And so I stopped complaining quick after that. And so, I would take things with me to read, but sometimes I'd forget because it was so early in the morning and freezing cold. So I would have to, read things that were around me. And this is long before cell phones and iPads and things like that. So I would just start reading the stuff around me in the pews, which was Bibles and hymnals. And so I began to look for like the juicy books of the Bible and read some, stories of the Old Testament that I thought, oh, this is saucy and juicy, and then eventually, I'd get to where I'd sing the hymns with the congregation, but then I'd pick a part to sing that was different. Sometimes I turn the hymnal upside down and try to read it upside down and try to figure things out, and trying to memorize which hymn was written by which author and things and what. Anyway, all this to say was, out of my boredom came a habit and a way that has helped me incredibly now as a choral conductor that I had no idea as a 4th grader would help me. And that is, of course, knowing biblical stories and texts that come from the Bible, and then also hymnals, and I'm learning how to read music and to be associated with hymn singing and things, which who knew at that tender age that was going to eventually be my life, is doing those things. So I'm not saying that in this time, you're going to have to be bored necessarily, but you are limited in the things you can do right now. And you're kind of forced to be in a situation that maybe you don't want to be in. Like I didn't want to be in the freezing cold outside at 5 a.m. with nothing to do when I could be sleeping and all that. But now that hindsight, I'm so grateful for that experience. And it certainly has helped me develop into the person I am today for having gone through that. And knowing that there was an expectation that I had a certain fortitude to get through it and make the best of it. And so I hope that, you will maybe put this into context in the same way yourself. So, right now during this pandemic, it's akin to a former flu pandemic that we had. As you know, in 1918, there was another giant, massive flu outbreak that happened throughout the world, and millions of people died, and it was just horrible. Very much like now, in that it affected so many people throughout the world. And not only was there a pandemic during that time, but of course there was the war, the World War I, that was happening at around the same time. So I've thought a lot about that and how, I did not experience World War I nor the 1918 flu, but we are experiencing something similar to that in the global outbreak here. And so I turned to art during that time and what was created, and was very pleased and surprised to know how much art was created during this time, and the way the time influenced the art that came. And so I'll just name off a couple of some composers that were composing during that time. They include Benjamin Britten and Enrique Granados, Gustav Holst, Ralph Vaughan Williams, Maurice Ravel, Igor Stravinsky, and the list goes on and on. And so many artists were creating compositions, and of course there's visual and other performing arts that were being cultivated and created as a result of this. The Times certainly influenced the music and art that was coming out of this time period. So I ask you, what could potentially come out of this time period? Not only what kind of changes physically for people. Do we stop shaking hands after this for a while? Do we maintain, social distancing, and maybe introverts? This is a great time for introverts to thrive. Maybe this is a time when there's a lot more reading happening. We don't know, and we won't know until we're done with this. But what we are in control of is the few limited hours that we have per day, that maybe you find yourself saying, this is predictable, this is boring, or I don't know what to do during this time because I'm normally with so many other people and doing things and being outdoors and, socializing and things. So I just wanted to offer you a few ideas. But before I do that, I wanted to tell you a quick story about a man named Roger Bannister. And if you've heard his name before, you might know him as the man who broke the 4-minute mile record. So the legend is, for thousands of years, no one could run a mile faster than 4 minutes. People, there's a story about people running wild animals after themselves to try to break that record, and it just couldn't be done for so long. And then in 1954, a man named Roger Bannister broke that record of the 4-minute mile. And the interesting thing is, after he did it, it began to be broken more and more. And so now running a 4-minute mile is an achievable feat for many, many people, some as young as the age of 15 and 16. So why do I bring that up? It's very interesting that why for possibly hundreds and thousands of years was no one able to break that record? It took someone doing it before others said, oh, I can do it too. And not saying that I'm a Roger Bannister, but I hope my message today just inspires you to say, oh, okay, well, being in this situation, maybe there are some things that I can do to be productive and come out of this with a set of skills that will help me thrive once we are able to be all together again. So, a lot of people in the pandemic have turned to things like working out and making themselves look and feel better with their bodies. And I think that's a wonderful thing for people to try to achieve. People are sometimes eating better, but set small, attainable goals for yourself. If that's just going on a walk every once a week, every day, or drinking more water, those are wonderful goals for you to set for yourself right now. Reading is something that, I always wish I had more time to do. And when I was forced to do it, when I was in fourth grade, I did it a lot because it was all I had to do. But now with electronics and things, I find, especially, I read a lot for work, but I don't read a lot to become more educated as a whole self. So that's something that I'd like to try to achieve, and I hope you'll join me in that journey. The other thing is to travel. And you might say, oh, no, no, this is not a good time to travel. And you're right. But a virtual travel, what better time for us to all visit a different place in this world that we would never think of going to, but now we can through this remote process. I encourage you to look for societies where maybe they haven't been affected yet by technology, and what those are like, the pristine cultures that are still relying on things before this explosion of technology. Others could be places where they have very different leadership styles, or societal places, like, for example, cultures that are female dominated versus male, or learning about maybe a repressive culture even, or just about even our neighbors. That could be one of, the Caribbean islands, or reading about Canada, or reading about the indigenous cultures of Australia, or something like that. But what a wonderful time for us to be able to travel globally within the confines of a couch and our computers. So that's something I would encourage you to do as well. And then the last thing I'll say is trying to think like another human being, putting yourself in shoes of others, especially those that maybe whose viewpoints that you don't know a lot about, or that confuse you, or that you're afraid of, frankly, because often, fear causes very bad things to happen, misunderstandings, and then eventually can lead to hate and things. So, maybe it's a time that we can try to live in the shoes of another person for a little bit, and see where that takes us. It might cement your current ideology and thoughts, but maybe it could create some compassion for those who we tend to think of that, oh, no, 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 I don't agree with that. But being more educated always is a better solution than being bored, right? So if you are bored, become more educated, is I guess what I'm trying to say. The last thing is that applies to music is there's two aspects that I'll be speaking with the Florida ACDA members about, and that is combining the ideas of musicianship and musicality, in making that more of a circular process than a linear process. So, take this time to hone your skills in sight singing, ear training, dictation, those kinds of things, harmonic analysis, chordal analysis, knowing what your inversions, arpeggiations, piano skills, all those things. But also marry it to the idea of musicality. And what I mean by that is, look through some of your old choral music that you haven't sung in a while, and take it back out and say, how would I do this now, a year later or a semester later? And can I pick out 10 things in it that I want to work on for my musicianship, which are those oral skills and sight singing kind of skills. But then, and you can do that maybe by reading another voice part, or trying to analyze the score, or things like that. But then also finding the things that make it musical. And to make something musical, we of course use techniques of the music itself, including rhythm, pitch, timbre, speed, tempo, articulation, dynamics, all these things, the diction, that's what we use to make those musical ideas. And maybe listening to recordings of pieces that you've already performed with the score in front of you, and seeing if you discover something new in the music. I think when you're limited in certain skills, then other skills can be honed. For example, people who suddenly lose their sight or smell or hearing, hopefully only temporary, they begin to, their other senses begin to work a little harder and be more effective. So we can kind of think of it that because of our socialization has been taken away from us, maybe our introversion and our personal skills can become stronger during this time. And so I'll leave you with, if you are bored, also, enjoy that sometimes. The idea of being still, and we can do that through meditation or looking up at the sky or just paying attention to nature. One thing I always need to work on is talking less and listening more with my family members and my friends and such. So I hope that this can give you some ideas about things that we can do during this pandemic and these strange times to become a better me so we can become a better we. And that's very cliche, but I think if we all buy into it a little bit, we'll be surprised what incredible things that could come out of it in the long run. So I just can't wait to make music again all together, and I will not take that for granted here in the future. And I do wish you all great health and safety and wellness and of mind and soul and body. And thank you so much for letting me share just these little thoughts with you. And again, I really hope we all get to make music again very soon together.